put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tog tips, and image reviews to help you improve your photography. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
It works so much better when I press the right button. Hey gang, how you doing? Thanks for joining me for TogChat episode number 67. I am indeed Joe Edelman, and my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding behind the hows and the whys of great photographs. So gang, as always, it's awesome to see so many of you here on a Monday night. Thanks for joining me. Anand is here. Good morning, Anand. Wayne is here. Carlos, Sven, Carl Har, Troy, Lee Cartwright. I know Linda's here. Esmond's here. Santiago, Trevor, all you guys. Bish, thank you so much for coming out. It's really great to see you. I really appreciate the support every week. As always, I've got some really cool photos for us to look at tonight. I'm going to take your questions. I will tell you guys that there are already some really awesome questions that have been submitted. If you've got a question you would like me to answer tonight, remember, don't answer the questions from the chat window because I can only do one thing at a time. So I just posted the link. Follow that link, submit your question, and I will be more than glad to do my best to answer that question before we finish up. So before we get going, as always, gang, do me a favor. Please take just a second. Tell your photography friends that we are streaming live right now on YouTube. Twitter and Facebook are always the fastest way to get that word out, okay? So listen, just in case some of you, took the weekend off or weren't near your computers or near your phones, remember, please, that I had a new video come out this past week. And actually, there were two of them. But the important one is the one that you're seeing on the screen over here, that side, okay? I like to call it the inverse square law for dummies. But in other words, the inverse square law for photographers. This is a video that pretty much every one of you needs to watch. Maybe watch it a couple times. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I stressed over this video for quite a while. And the reason I did is there are a lot of videos and articles that are out there already about the inverse square law. So you guys have heard me say many times, it's like my whole idea, my whole goal with this channel is to bring something to the table that's not already out there. There's no sense in just adding to the noise. So the challenge was, how could I do the inverse square law differently? It's been done in different ways, a bunch of different ways. It's pretty much almost always talked about, there you go, Esmond Never. It's almost always talked about with the math, pretty much every time, leading off. And everybody tends to use the same examples. And the reality of it is where I got the ideas for doing the video this way were actually from you guys and doing these talk chats and doing the photo reviews. Because time and time again, I find that a lot of the big mistakes and the struggles that people are having are because they don't understand the inverse square law. So I would encourage you, check it out. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I think that it connects with a lot of people and it's understandable. There is a really great question coming up in our Q&A a little bit later that has to deal with one of the points I talk about in the video. There is one piece of the video that I mention a few times that confuses people because there is kind of a common understanding that the bigger your modifier, the softer the light. And I actually show two examples in the video where the opposite happens. So I'm going to explain that for you guys. Somebody has posted a question already about that, and it's something that needs some clarification. In the next few videos that I have coming up, you're going to see some examples where it will also help reinforce and clarify that. I did not misspeak in the video about the large light source and about distance. And that stuff you learned about large modifiers being softer is also not wrong. It's correct. But there's a point where those two things intersect. I'll talk about that during the Q&A. I promise we'll dig into that. I will clarify that, try and make it simpler for everybody to understand, okay? So I do want to get right into the reviews tonight. Let me just switch over a couple things here really quick before I wind up having a big problem later. There we go. So, hey, listen, if you do want to have your photo reviewed here in TogChat, remember, all you got to do, join my Facebook group. Super, super simple. The link is in the description below. You can get a little look at what the Facebook page there looks like. It is a very different kind of Facebook group, gang. I'm not going to lie to you. And if you are really interested in learning, and that's the key, truly learning, I think that you will really, really enjoy it. If you're one of those photographers that pretty much just wants to be able to post your pictures and have people say, ooh and ah, I'll admit it's probably not the group for you because that's not what we do there. It is a learning group. But there's the link for those of you that are not already members of the group. You're going to be asked to answer 3 super simple questions when you sign up. Make sure you answer those questions. Otherwise, you will not be admitted to the group. It's real simple, okay? But each week, I pick the images for this TogChat from the Facebook group. Okay, so let's switch over here. Our first shot for tonight, and we'll get rid of inverse square law. How's that? There we go. Okay, inverse square law is all gone. This comes to us from Justin Griggs, and Justin is in Cincinnati, Ohio. You got all your camera specs and that up here in the upper left-hand corner for those of you who've never seen me do this before, so you won't hear me read all that stuff, but I'm going to dig right in here. I want to give you the background that Justin has shared with me about his photo. This is a shot that he did from a group shoot. So a lot of you already know how I feel about group shoots and my comments on that, and I will talk about that again in a little minute because this image actually does kind of exemplify some of the issues that you run into. So we'll discuss that. More importantly, it's the first time that he got to use his brand new Sigma 85mm f1.4 art lens. So he wanted to put it through his paces. I guess he got the lens the day before this shoot. So when it came time to do this, he realized that the contrast between the red and the green behind her would really, work well together. So he wanted to make this kind of very natural in terms of its colors and really be able to blend the model, her skin tone, the outfit, all that kind of stuff. So he did want to add a little bit more of a neutral color to it. So he went ahead and he set things up so that he was basically shooting almost into the sun. So that he's using that lens flare to get a little bit of that kind of warm light. And it's also giving her the rim. So it's, kind of nice golden backlight that you get. So he lit this with a Rove Light 600B and a 22-inch silver beauty dish with a diffusion cap on it. It was set slightly on camera left, and we can tell we've got a little bit of shading on the camera right side of her face, so there's your indicators there. He had the strobe set at 1/8 power. Overall, he's pleased with the shot, but he would like to improve the fact that the color, especially her skin tone, it's kind of cool. And, obviously coming from the flash, so if he would do it again, his comments were that he would use a CTO gel to warm the artificial light to make it more naturally blend into the light late in the day. That is what's lighting the rest of the scene. Challenge that he has, and this is where he's also looking for some suggestions, is that the Rove Light, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's kind of almost like a bare bulb style type flash. So it's not a flash that you can easily gel. So given that he's putting this in, let's see, what did he say? A beauty dish, he's asking for suggestions on how to gel that strobe. So do me a favor, before you all start typing those suggestions in, I'm going to jump right ahead to the end and say, Justin, don't gel the strobe. You don't need to. So I'll come back and I'll explain more of that. So let's dig into the shot a little bit. So first of all, at first pass, this is another one of those shots that, first pass, when you first see it, it's like, whoa, she's gorgeous. Love the colors. I can't believe I'm going to say this. You ready? Everybody sit down. If you're not sitting down, please sit down. I love the bokeh. Now, is it worth spending $1,000 to $1,100 for compared to the actually less than $500 Nikkor 85mm that I have? Sorry, Justin, not worth that. But as long as you're happy with it, man, that's awesome. And indeed, it is nice bokeh in the background. The problem that we have here with this shot is that we start to fall apart when it comes to the details. So it's the kind of picture that first pass every time, it's going to grab people's attention. Really, really well done. You essentially made all the right choices. Now, I don't know how many of the choices you actually got to make, Justin, given that this was a group shoot. We all know from past discussions, a lot of you have had personal experience with group shoots before. You don't always have as much control as you would like to have. In fact, you rarely have as much control as you would like to have. And in all likelihood, he probably did not have the ability to control her makeup. But yes, you all heard it right. I said I love the bokeh. This is one of those rare situations where I think the bokeh is really nice. I'll own that, okay? I've said before, I have nothing against bokeh. But that being said, you know, we're struggling in some of the details here, Justin. So the biggest detail is her hair. So, you know, generally speaking, in these group shoots, you've got a situation where there's a whole bunch of people around. You're trying to shoot with the subject. There are people over here having a conversation. There's a couple people over here talking about the fact that they got some last night. You know, it's all over the place. And it's distracting. So that makes it really hard to interact. So what I do love, you've got a good connection going with this girl. She's gorgeous. It's simple. It works. The hair is a mess. So my challenge to you, Justin, next time, obviously, fix the hair, right? That goes without saying. But for this image, this hair is fixable. Now, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be ideal, but it's very fixable. And I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see it in the video, but if you check the image out on my Facebook group, let me get it up a little bit bigger here. You can see we've got a lot of stray hair in this image, a lot of stray hair on her face. You know, the stray hair on the outside, I want to go back to one-to-one here. A lot of the stray hair on the outside up through here, I can live with that because we kind of expect that in an outdoor setting. So believe me, I'm not saying that her hair should look like it's in the studio, but it should still look really, really darn good, okay? The one hair, as far as these stray hairs on the outside, let's start there. The one that you have to take good care of is get rid of this one oddball that goes up there. In a perfect world, given that you've got that rim lighting, these here and these here are really distracting, okay? Now, I have a little kind of comparison for you guys coming up, but let's talk about all the details and then I'll go to the comparison. You talked about your situation with the Rove light, Justin. So there's two reasons why you're getting cold light here. One is you're using a silver beauty dish. Silver is always going to make your light colder, okay? It's going to hit more on the blue end of the scale every time, guaranteed. So solution one is, instead of gelling the strobe, use a white beauty dish. Problem solved. Solution two is, this isn't too cold. I do agree with you. I really wish her skin didn't look quite so much like it was lit with a flash. That's part your light source, or I should say your modifier. It's not really the problem of the Rove light. It's the problem of the modifier. So it's part your modifier, and it's part the fact that it was probably pretty warm when you were doing this, and she's starting to sweat. So she's shiny on the skin. Now, especially in situations like this with group shoots, in all likelihood, this young lady did her own makeup. You didn't have a makeup artist there, which means, of course, most girls, they don't know how to do their makeup properly for a photo shoot by themselves. And plus, once they get there, none of the guys that are there shooting are interested in telling the girl, yeah, you know, go touch up your makeup. Nah, they just want to keep shooting. They just want to keep shooting and taking pictures. And so the girl's makeup just gets worse and worse and worse. And she's out there and it's a little breezy. And so every so often she's just like flipping that hair over and it's just getting, you know, worse and worse and worse and worse. So I wanted to show you something. Now, keep in mind, I'm working off of a Facebook size file, all right? I took the liberty, Justin, of doing two real quick things to your image. One is I wanted to show you how it starts to clean up when you remove some of the stray hair. I didn't take it all out. I didn't have time, guys. I'm sorry. But if you look at the outsides with the shoulders, you look at some of this up through here, a little bit on the face, you take it out, it starts to clean the image up a lot. Notice the earring. When the earring's gone, that distraction disappears. But at a group shoot, you generally don't have the control to be able to say to the model, no. And the problem of it is if you're the guy that says, no, get rid of the earring, all the other guys want to be, you know, I'm Mr. I'll save the day for the girl. And they'll tell the girl, no, 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 it looks fine. You like your earrings, sweetie. You leave your earrings on. And you're kind of the jerk in the group because you asked. Again, the problem with group shoots. So let me cut to the chase here, Justin. If you're able to access this girl, if you got her contact information, if she's on Model Mayhem, Facebook, whatever, you need to go out and shoot with this girl one-on-one. She's gorgeous. absolutely gorgeous. Find yourself a local makeup artist, work with her some more, but man, you got to work on the details. I toned her skin down using that little trick that I have in my YouTube videos, the how to fix shiny skin in Lightroom and Photoshop. Again, it's a down and dirty trick. It's not something that you want to rely on all the time, but fortunately in this particular image, Justin, it works just fine. So I love everything you were trying to do. Oh, I forgot to tell you how I wanted the skin. I'm sorry. Super simple. Also, down and dirty. So remember, here's his original, which he was unhappy about. It's a little cold, and I agree, it's a little cold. I warmed it up. All I did was in Photoshop. You could do the same in Lightroom. In Photoshop, I used an adjustment layer, and I used a photo filter, one of the warm gels, which is essentially the Photoshop version of using a CTL, Justin. So as long as you understand what you're capable of doing in post, then, oh, Justin's here, awesome. So as long as you can understand what you're capable of doing in post, Justin, this shot's actually the perfect example of not having to go to all the trouble of using the gels, especially on location. Let's face it, gels can be tough in the first place. If you don't have a strobe that is easily designed to be, it doesn't have like a flat tube so you can easily put gels in front of it, or like has a set of barn doors that hold the gels. If you don't have that kind of a strobe, gels are a pain in the butt to begin with. So it really depends on your strobe. And the Rove lights, they're a little tough to gel. Add that to working on location, you don't want to have to be messing with that stuff. So in a situation like this, you don't need the CTO. Okay, you simply don't. You can get away with it by doing it all in post because you're just looking to take that silver out. So if that silver beauty dish happens to be yours, if you already own it, you don't have to run out and trade it in or get a new one right away. But just understand when you use it, it will benefit you, especially in a case like this where you want the yellows. The yellows and the oranges that you're going to get with that filter, the photo filter, are exactly what you're wanting to add into the shot. So you'll know that when you go ahead and you use that silver dish, you'll be good to go. Okay? All right, so let me just move on to the next shot here for you guys. I apologize. My screen started going like all crazy on me there, and that would not be good. So while I'm switching over again, remember, if you have questions, type them in to the link that I posted earlier. I'm going to post it again. It's tog.chat/question, and I will do my best to answer those questions before the show is over. If you've got a question that you absolutely want to get answered, that little $sign down in the bottom left-hand corner of your chat window, that will allow you to do a super chat. A donation of anywhere from $1 on up to $500. I promise you don't have to pay me $500 to get me to answer a question, unless, of course, it's a question about the Sony A9, and then that will require 2 $500 super chats. But anything else, I'll answer it even for $1. So you can do that super chat. I will take care of your questions even if I have to stay here late. And then just one more little piece of business before we move on. Please, if you haven't done so already, take a moment and follow me on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are the ones where I am the busiest. And actually, I wanted to show you guys something here really quick. I talk a lot. So this is the result of you guys, my followers and subscribers. I talk a lot about practicing, and I talk a lot about the idea that no matter what, I try to do something that is photography related every single day. And when I say photography related, I mean take a picture or really think through a picture. It is a discipline that I have maintained for decades. I still do it. So, recently I've had a couple people kind of try and call me out on that. Like, come on, like really, like every single day you're doing something. I'm like, yeah. And, are there ever days where I miss? Sure. But I guarantee you the net result is more than once a day. So what I decided to do is I started a second Twitter account here. Let me take that off the screen real quick. And I'll give you guys the link for this one if you want to follow me and follow along, okay? So you'll notice the name of this Twitter account is Joe Edelman's iPhone. And so literally, and I'm not going to lie, traditionally I'm not a big fan of these things, but what I am doing is daily I am posting a Twitter picture that I make, excuse me, a Twitter picture, an Instagram photo with my iPhone that I make that day. And what I'm also doing is I'm going back through my archives because I literally have thousands of images done with my iPhone over the years, and I'm posting some of those. So when it's an archive image, let me find one of my archive images here. When it's an archive image, you'll know because it will say from the archives in the caption. Otherwise, if it's a photo of the day, now I haven't posted today's yet, but this is actually a shot that I did with my grandson yesterday at a holiday picnic. It will have the date, etc. So I'm not saying that, hey, number one, you should go do this, picture a day challenge. I honestly think they're kind of cheesy because we tend to falter when we challenge ourselves to do those things. I started doing it simply because I sincerely and truly always take at least one picture a day. And indeed, if it's not with my Nikon D810 or some other, professional type camera, it is with my iPhones. And it's like hands down something I do all the time. So the link is there in the chat window. I'll also include it in the description after the video so that you can follow that. That's not my regular Instagram account. It is literally my iPhone Instagram account. And I will share those pictures with you guys along the way. Okay. So all of that being said, let's get into our next shot here. Let me clear that off the screen and we'll switch things over. And I've got a shot. So we're going to have a theme tonight for the first part, and that is going to be pictures taken outdoors with flash. Okay. So this image comes to us from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma by Herb Johnson. All of your specs are up in the upper left here. And this is with a Pentax. We don't get a lot of Pentax users here. So it's kind of fun to see the Pentax shots here. So this was from a practice session that Herb was doing. The goal was to get the lighting right and to get a pose that brought out the beauty of the young girl. Those were his words. So he deliberately set up to do like an 8 p.m. shoot so that he could get the sun backlit to accent her hair, which indeed he did. We've got a really nice highlight coming down the camera right side of the hair. His main light was a Yongnuo speed light set at full power in a softbox on camera left, pointed, it was positioned slightly above her and then angled down. It was about 6 feet from the girl. He asked her to put her left foot in front of her to accentuate her hips and then had her play with her hair. He also asked her for a little head tilt to drop her left shoulder. Overall, he's pleased with the outcome. Here's where our questions come in. If he could do it again, he considered using a second softbox positioned almost at ground level to do kind of like a clamshell lighting. And the reason he's choosing that is because he's not sure about the amount of fall off that he's got happening on her legs at the bottom. Okay, so Herb, for a practice session, I think you've done a good job here, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement in this shot. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I want to show you kind of how close you are, literally, okay? Let's deal with the lighting first. I'm going to work from the end of the comments, and then we'll go back to the pose and that kind of stuff. So as far as the lighting goes, you essentially did everything right in terms of your light placement, in terms of picking late in the day to get the sun, setting to create the nice orange rim. You got all the right pieces going there. Where you're off a little bit, Herb, is your exposure. Your subject is definitely overexposed, especially in relationship to the background. So, not to get into a big lighting tutorial here, but just to make sure that we're kind of giving you some basic steps because, hey, it's summertime and this is the time to go out and kind of experiment with this stuff. And I will have some videos coming up on this, but sorry, they're not going to hit until later in the summer, okay? Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to set your exposure first for your ambient scene. So in other words, that background, you're going to make a decision. How much of it do you want to see? And how much detail do you want in the sky? If there is any detail, if it's just blue sky or whatever, but if there's clouds or that, you're going to decide on that first and set your exposure, do your test shots of the background and say, yep, that's what I like. Okay, now your task becomes much simpler because now all you've got to do is start building the flash up so that you are bringing your subject up to the level of exposure where she looks good against that backdrop. Now, is it possible that you'll get to the point where when you realize you've got the subject looking good, you want the background a little lighter, a little darker, and you may have to adjust? Of course, okay? But the easiest way to do it is set the background first, then build the light on the subject. Now, that being said, with regard to the clamshell and the fall-off, Herb, I would actually discourage you from going to a clamshell lighting setup. And I would say don't worry about the fall off. So here are my thoughts. Number one, if you go with a clamshell lighting setup, you're going to have this light down in the bottom left-hand corner of the frame, light up that grass even more. And then it becomes a distraction. Because right now, the fact that this grass is so light, it does pull my attention down to the bottom left-hand corner of the shot, which we don't want. I will give you a little hint. That's actually kind of an easy fix in Photoshop or Lightroom. You could burn that down a little bit. You'd be fine. But you add a clamshell down there, you're going to light that grass up even more. Even if you have that like a softbox tilted up a little bit, it's still going to hit down here and it's going to cause you some exposures because you don't want the bottom of the frame being the brightest, okay? So honestly, having a little bit of light fall off, that's fine. And it's actually going to add to the drama a little bit. So to be honest with you, now we'll get to the pose pieces. Given the type of pose that she's doing, I wouldn't shoot this as a full-length picture because it's kind of boring. And Herb, here's the bad news. She thinks it's boring, okay? If we look at her expression and her overall body language, she's not quite buying your idea. So this is something that you've got to become very aware of when you're working with subjects, is really kind of paying attention to how they respond to the things that you're suggesting. One of the biggest things, the hand upside down, as opposed to right side up, okay, you know, like doing it this way in the hip instead of that way. She's got her hand in a way that is literally indicating like, I'm not buying this. Turning the face away from the camera, lips pursed together, that's all like, you know, I'm just not digging this idea, okay? The idea that you've got the knee bent and all that, that would actually look great in a 3/4 length shot. In other words, and when we say 3/4 in this case, I'm saying like crop just above the knees, okay? That would look awesome. So, you know, it's little things, and I'm really nitpicking here, but you always have to kind of look at context. She's wearing a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Not that that's bad, but what would be the context here with that pose and that outfit? You know, I could see it if it was like some long flowy dress. Maybe if this was actually like a prom picture or if it was a gown, you know, then you want to go full length and try for a lot of drama that way. But also I will point out, and I don't know for sure, Herb, because it's small on here, but I can't tell if this is a bracelet, in which case you're off the hook, or if it's a hairband. If it's a hairband, oh no, 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 no. Got to get rid of the hairbands. So if it's a hairband, Herb, you got to promise me you go into Photoshop and you're going to use that as practice and learn how to take that out, because you can. It's not super easy, but it's also not the most difficult thing you'll ever learn to do in Photoshop. And that's the penance that you have to pay. There's another picture coming up tonight that's got a similar scenario with, is that? Yeah, there is. There's another shot that's coming tonight. It's got a similar scenario with stuff like that where you just got to fix it. You do it a couple times, you'll never ever make that mistake. But the biggest thing is, Herb, I totally love where you're headed, and I think that you were successful in terms of getting yourself close, but you definitely want to dial that strobe down a little bit. You don't want it quite as intense as what it is. You want to be able to balance things out a little bit more. And the little bit of light fall off that you've got at the bottom, I honestly would not worry about it. Keep it simple, stupid. You guys hear me talk about that all the time. For me, I don't want to be spending so much time head down in my gear that I'm neglecting my subject. And this is a really good example, Herb, that you really need to work on connecting with that subject. Anytime there's a big age difference, it's a challenge. It's a really, really big challenge. So it's a skill that you develop. You're not going to learn about it in a book. You know, James Parrish, the leg being in line with the other, I just don't like the crop, period. That's why I'm not picking on it. To me, this picture as a full-length picture makes no sense. So there's a question here in the chat from James Parrish about one leg being in line with the other. Yeah, if this was something that we were doing where it really made sense full length, we wanted to keep it, sure. But you know, if you imagine here, let me see if I can zoom this to a point where we can get a sense of it. If we take that down to a 3/4 length crop, that's like a bazillion% better. So, and in this case, the bent knee looks good. That's the point. So yeah, James, in a full length picture, you are not incorrect about having the one leg, because kind of you know, it's like she's on a stick. But I just wouldn't do it as a full length picture, honestly. Okay. All right. Next up, let's switch over here, and we are going to go to a shot that comes to us from Barbados, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay. So Byron Morris, Shot this with a Canon T6i. All your specs are there. I'm not going to read them. So he didn't give me a lot of details on this one. So, you know, Byron, in the future, give me more to talk about, and then I won't be able to pick your picture apart so much. So this is from a recent shoot that he did to begin rebuilding his portfolio to show to potential clients. So that's a good thing. The lighting info, he's got 2 strobes, and he did give me a behind-the-scenes picture, so that's how he redeemed himself a little bit here, okay? The lighting info he has, I'll show you the behind-the-scenes. He's got a Yangwano in a 48-inch octobox as his main light. It's on camera left. And he's got another Yangwano in a strip box as his rim light on camera right. In his words, if he could change anything about the shot, he would probably add a reflector below the model as a fill. Okay? So, this is another one. This is part of our theme tonight, guys. And it is a big part of the theme tonight. Close, but no cigar. At first pass, response, ooh, nice. And then after a few seconds of looking at this image, no, it's actually really sloppy. Okay? And pretty much each image you've seen so far, and actually, the warning, each image you're going to see tonight, suffers from that same kind of situation. It's close, but no cigar. And the response is details. It's all in the details. So my thoughts on this one. I first, and here I'm going to go and I'm going to upset a whole bunch of people. So Byron, this first comment, this is not about you. This is a much more general statement. Okay. But I hope, Byron, that you will take this as a challenge. Okay. I'm getting really, really bored with this lighting. I don't know about the rest of you. But every other freaking YouTube video, every other picture that goes up on the photo blogs, it's some YouTube photographer doing this outdoor lighting with the background slightly dark, a super long telephoto lens. Like, I'm sorry, but where's the creativity? So we've got like literally like 300 people on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else that have mastered this lighting. Good. That's like awesome. But everybody's like oohing and on like it's the greatest thing in the world. How is it the greatest thing in the world when every freaking photographer's doing it? It's boring, gang. It's boring. So, you know, Byron, I'm sorry. I don't mean it about your image personally, but since you are trying to rebuild your portfolio, the reason why I chose your image to talk about it, don't build a portfolio that looks like every freaking other picture on the internet. Build a portfolio that's unique, that's different, that has your spin to it. Because right now, every time I log into Facebook, my God, I see 20 photographers doing this exact same thing, and they're all copying each other. So I don't get it. Like, to me, that is... I don't want to understand why anybody would want to do that in photography. Look, I'm all for, so I want to be clear, so I don't get misquoted, because I dig myself a hole here frequently. I am all for, hey, I like that idea. I want to try that idea. Absolutely. And I'll even go so far, I'll own this, as saying, oh, I like that idea. I want to try that. And I'll try and duplicate it exactly if I like it enough. But, big but, that version, if I'm successful, that is simply for my own satisfaction. It is never going to see the light of day, i.e., not going on the internet. If I love it enough and I've mastered it, now I know how to do it. I've taught myself a new technique. Now I've got to turn around and I've got to find a way to apply that technique my way, my style. Then, oh, hell yes, it'll be on the internet. I'm going to use it for my work, etc. Okay? So I absolutely encourage people. If you see something you like, try and copy it as a learning experience. But don't make it your thing just because everybody else does it. To me, that's just boring. So, enough of the rant. There it is. Somebody commented about the watermark. Yeah, I mean, I will be honest with you, Byron. Your watermark is pointless for a couple reasons. Number one, that watermark on grass, I can remove it in 3 seconds flat. boom, gone, done. So all it is doing is distracting. And then the second part, which is the problem, it's all capital letters, all jammed together. There's no kerning between the letters. It's really, really difficult to read. So at least if you're going to use a watermark, make it readable, man. Because you've got, like, you're not using your name, which, go back and look at my marketing videos, gang. I'm not going to go down that path tonight. But, you're spelling visions differently, adding some numbers in there, adding apostrophe in there, and then it's hard to read. So I'm sorry, but it actually takes away from your picture, okay? If you're going to put a picture on the internet and you're worried about being stolen, don't put it on the internet. Done. Now, let's get to the picture. So as far as the technique that you're using here, lighting, you did an awesome job. Awesome. So I've got nothing to give you there, okay? I would not use a reflector on the bottom. Again, because I'm not a big fan of taking the studio lighting outside and overdoing it. I'm more of a fan of using lights to subtly improve what's going on. But here's what I want to point out to you, Byron, because I promise you, you post this picture on Facebook locally, people will look at it and say, ooh, oh, wow. And I don't mean the photographers. I mean your potential clients. Don't rest on that, man, because there's a lot of sloppy stuff here. So number one, that twisted strap is 1,000% unforgivable. There is never, ever an acceptable excuse for that, because I am confident that Doreen, I know Doreen, even though she's in Barbados, Doreen has given me many great tours of Barbados on her phone. Anyway, I know that she did not have a gun. And I know that she was not holding a gun to your head, Byron, saying, you will shoot this picture right now without fixing that strap. I know she didn't do that. You have to understand that when you take the picture, that's your problem. And that strap was clearly twisted for a while because it's twisted in this shot too. And here's the other thing that was there for a while. The way she's holding the jacket, I'm not a fan of the off-the-shoulder thing, but some people like that. So we'll let that slide, okay? But why is the shirt folded under here? And I realize it's not a jacket, it's a shirt, sorry. But why is that folded under here? Sloppy too. It's folded under the same way here. So it was there for a while. You had a lot of time to notice that. Not to mention that, as far as the other things that are going on here, the jewelry is excessive, but we've talked about this many, many times before. For some people, they're just going to, be adamant they want the jewelry, whatever. But if you're trying to build a portfolio, Byron, and you really want that portfolio to stand out, lose the jewelry. It's not helping your portfolio at all. It's just a distraction. Talk to your clients about fingernail polish in advance. Again, for them, if they insist on that, that's fine. It's their thing. But if you're building your portfolio, man, if nothing else, in Photoshop, Byron, change this color to the same color as the shirt. Don't introduce another color down there. It's going to pull attention. Using your hue, saturation, and luminance panel in Lightroom or the hue, saturation, and luminance in Camera Raw, you can change that blue. It's a teal blue. You can change it to that color blue. It's going to blend a lot better, okay? And so, it'll work better, okay? The only other thing that I would suggest, and I can see it in the catch lights, and I know it for a fact here, look closely, gang. A lot of you are picking out the little things, but all of you are missing the lighting stuff. The placement of this rim is fine. Mind you, most of the light's hitting her butt, which we don't even see. But look at the softbox. 2/3 of that softbox is below this girl's face. Why? Light naturally comes from above. That's what our brains expect and want to see. So the problem is that you've got here, the catch lights are really low in her eyes. And indeed, you're putting shadows on the tops of things. There's shadows on the tops of her lips. There's topside shadows on the nose up here. You've got to be careful of that because you've got more light coming from below than you do from above. So the general positioning of the light is fine. The fact that it's angled, but it's got to go up. So my only advice to you there is, since you're using voice-activated, light modifiers, you need to get one that's going to pay a little bit of attention for you instead of being on the phone, okay? But, and then the last piece, I had to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the backwards head tilt thing. Just like, I don't get it. To me, that's not sexy. It's not comfortable. I just don't quite get it. So all that being said, you got the technique down really, really well. But you got to work on the details. Success in photography, gang, all of you, please understand. Success is in the details. Period. Okay? I saw somebody along the way asked about the makeup and specifically the eyebrows. I would be willing to bet that those eyebrows are maybe tattooed. Yeah, it's hard to tell because obviously the image is coming off of Facebook here and it's small. It looks like those eyebrows may be tattooed, but I will say that that's kind of the style. I wish that they were a little bit more even. The one on camera right, her left eyebrow is definitely thinner than the one on camera left. But if I'm a betting man here, and unfortunately, Byron didn't give me a whole lot of background on his post here, so part of the moral is, gang, give me lots of background. But I had the feeling he didn't work with a makeup artist here, that this is the girl doing her own makeup, so that's also a piece of why. But details, gang, that's the key. It's all about the details. All right, next up, I got two more here that I want to get through quickly, but I want to have times for Q&A because we have some really good questions that you guys posted tonight. So this one comes to us from across the pond in England, Lee Cartwright. This was in his words, an attempt at a beauty shot, and I think that he's off to a good start here. He's just getting started and really trying to learn how to do beauty shots. He lit this with a Godox DE300 strobe and a shoot-through umbrella, placed it about 20 degrees left of camera position and about a half a foot above eye level. And we can see very clearly there's that nice small catch light, okay? Video coming up real soon. I've talked about this before, but now that the inverse square law video is out, get ready, gang. There's a boatload of lighting videos coming from me. Everybody said they wanted the lighting videos, so they're coming, and they're coming hot and heavy. One of the first ones is one that I promised you guys a while ago. I'm going to show you how you can create beauty dish lighting with a shoot-through umbrella. And I'll give you a little teaser. Lee here has done it. So I'll break it down for you in my next video. But he did this shot. He's trying to build up experience with doing beauty shots. They're his personal favorite thing to do. The goal was to get a shot that was sharp and fitted for the purpose. As for achieving his goal, he does feel that he achieved what he was after. In his opinion, it's the best beauty shot that he's done so far. I'm proud to say he was following my advice from some other videos and also a past photo review that I did of his. So he spent a lot more time getting to know the model, building up a level of comfort and rapport, and really getting her to work with the idea of collaborating with her. So making sure that she understood the importance of her being there, not that she was just an object. She was nervous, but the more that he spent time with her, spent time talking, the more they worked together, she relaxed as things went on. So that was good. She was very new to modeling. The only time she'd been in front of the camera before this was modeling for some friends at college. So he did his editing in Photoshop Elements. If he could change anything, he would adjust the hands a little bit. He likes where they are. He was very careful not to block the face, but he would also like to try some different variations. And he's also very conscious, which I had to look twice when I read this. He's also very conscious that one of the pupils is slightly more dilated than the other. So he would like to try and find a way to deal with that in post-processing. And then also he let me know that he has finally just purchased Photoshop. So he intends to revisit the post-processing on this as he learns Photoshop. So overall, Lee, I got to say congratulations, okay? I like the tightness of the shot. I like the fact that you are, starting to get into the more creative makeup, etc. For my personal taste, Lee, so this doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong, my personal taste. I would still like to see the hands back a little bit more. That's my personal taste. I really don't object to them here except for two issues, okay? The two issues are, the young lady is wearing makeup and foundation. How do I know that when I wasn't there? Because her face is a different color than her hands. So that's a little bit of a problem. Ways you get around that, especially since you have that shoot-through umbrella nice and close. One, you either move the hands back, or two, you actually indeed have the makeup artist apply makeup to the hands. That way, the skin tone matches. You could work on it in post and get close, but it's a whole lot easier to do it in the camera. I'll tell you that. The other thing is, if you're going to keep doing beauty shots, Lee, one of the important things that you have to build into your prep prior to the shoot, communicate to the models that they must have decent fingernails. This young lady has no fingernails. Now, fortunately, there's only one finger where we can really see it. And at least she didn't completely chew it off. There's a little bit of white, but not much. Something as simple as a set of glue-on fingernails, which are about $5, solves that problem. So I would encourage you, keep pushing with what you're doing. Continue to control. If I'm going to be like hyper picky, make sure that you clean up these leading edges of the hair here, that kind of stuff, okay? Oh, Lee's here. Good. Yeah, the foundation was pretty orange. And indeed, I mean, I can see that it's definitely got color to it. And so, understand, Lee, it's not that the foundation was bad. That's very common. It's just that obviously there's no foundation on her hands. So your challenge is slide the hands back and hide them a little bit. Or literally, if you're working with a makeup artist, have the makeup artist apply that foundation to the hands. And solves the problem, okay? So if you know you're going to build your shot around doing things with the hands, absolutely have them apply it to the hands. She doesn't have to do like the whole palm or everything because the palm will always be a little bit lighter, but you want them to hit the camera edge of the hand because it's very rare you're going to, so you're, oh, James Parrish. Yeah, at least she didn't chew it up. Yeah, you'd be amazed how many girls chew their fingernails off all the time. So April with the absentee fee for the super chat. Thank you so much, April. I appreciate it. So, it's seriously, Lee, you're off to a great start here, man. Really great start. I love the progress you're making. I am really anxious to see how you evolve now that you're into Photoshop. So, I will definitely look forward to more of your images coming up. Okay? All right, and our last one for the night comes to us from Mexico. So we're jumping around the world a little bit here. So this is from Ivan. This is a Canon shooter tonight. I'll give you all the specs. They're up in the upper left-hand corner there. You can read them yourself. So he met a makeup artist that she was really cool, really fun, and she wanted to collaborate. So he was more than happy to accept. She had showed him her work. He thought it was really interesting and actually really good. So he connected with this girl who happens to be a good friend of his that he has been wanting to photograph for a while. So it's kind of the perfect storm. He lit this with a 120 centimeter Octabox and a Yangwano speedlight. And he is very happy with his result. So again, we're going to go back to detail. So as I explained to you guys tonight, everything's about the details, okay? First of all, let me start with the cropping. So I've already established in a previous shot, I want to make sure I continue bringing the thread forward. I established in a previous shot, I'm not a big fan of the backward head tilt. James Parrish, thank you so much, man. Thank you. I really appreciate the super chat. I'm not a big fan of the backwards head tilt, and I'm not a big fan of shooting up somebody's nose when they're looking down kind of thing. Like, I'll do a lot of pictures from below with the head up, but the person's looking like out this way. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just being honest. I find her head angle and her looking down kind of awkward. That being said, I have a couple of dislikes. Things that I really, really feel, Ivan, would dramatically help you improve your shot. So the first one is the crop. I don't get why her cleavage is in the picture. Like, at all. It serves no purpose except to be a distraction. So for me, this shot could definitely benefit. Whoops, let's come back up here. This shot could benefit from now I got to zoom back out a little bit. It could benefit from a much tighter crop, and I'm not going to be able to get it to go where I want it to. See if I can get in between. No, it's not going in between. So I would crop it. Here, let me just do it this way. I was trying to save using the tool. I would crop it like, honestly, I'd go pretty tight right in there. Probably go square is most likely what I would do, because with the makeup kind of finishing at her collarbone and nothing on going on below it, there's kind of no reason for it to be there. So, but other things you got to look for. Number one, like where some of the makeup dropped here and you got a blob, take that out. The shine on her chin and her nose, for me at least, these do not add anything to the shot. I would remove them. The earring is a terrible distraction. There's as much white in this earring as there is in her eyes. So it simply competes. Remove it. It's really easy to take that out. You've got to be really, really careful, Ivan, when you're working with a makeup artist. I don't care if they're new, experienced, if you're doing it for fun, whatever. Details. Details, details, details. So where I'm really having a problem with the makeup is it's very inconsistent. So I get it. It was meant to be kind of rough and gritty. But when we get up here to the face, the lips are just really, really rough. The makeup is smudged. You can see in the bottom of the lips, it's smudged. There's sparkles in some places, not in others, which basically makes the lip look like it's got like bumps or stuff on it. Just really gotta kind of work with that. We've got a lot of sparkles here. We've got a couple remnants of sparkles over here, which actually look more like a mistake. So these are details. Overall, man, I love where you're headed with the picture, but there's a lot of little details that really kind of get in the way. So that's the thing that I'm going to encourage all of you. You've got to really, you've got to really watch those details. And so that's our theme tonight, gang, is watch the details. Okay. So just a reminder, guys, if you have a question, I am going to put the link in the chat window there because we're going to dig into questions momentarily. Also, just in case some of you are not aware of it, I am on Patreon, and I would love it if you guys would check out what I'm doing on Patreon. You can support the things that I'm doing here on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else for as little as $1 per month, $12 per year. That gets you access to materials that I don't post on YouTube, that I don't post on Facebook. It also gets you access to our Friday Zoom chats. And the things that's cool about the Friday Zoom chats is that we get together using the Zoom technology, which everybody can use, Windows or PC. All you need is a webcam and a built-in microphone, and you actually get to see all the other patrons. We get to have conversations and talk, and we actually have a lot of fun. Getting to know each other, people from around the world, and obviously getting to talk about photography. We do a lot of problem solving during that time. Definitely it's a good time, and I would really, really encourage you to check it out, okay? And then just one other quick reminder here, gang. The link for Patreon, it's in the description below the video, but I will also put that here. Corinne, thank you very much. I really appreciate the super chat. And there's the link for Patreon, okay? And I mentioned before the video that I had go up this past weekend, but there were actually 2 videos that went up this weekend. So one, of course, was the video that you see here about the inverse square law, and the other one is the video announcement that PhotoFlex has named me a light leader, which is really kind of cool. And the video kind of speaks for itself, so I'm not going to go on about it here other than to say the exciting part for you guys, and I mean it sincerely, it gives me access to be able to do some really, really cool stuff, and also to get my hands on some new lighting modifiers that are not coming out until later this summer. So I'm going to be able to get them early, put them through their paces, do some tests, and be able to release some videos right when these modifiers come out. And I know for a lot of you, especially you speedlight shooters, I think you're going to like some of this stuff that they're coming out with. So it was, definitely very cool to be recognized for the work that I've done, and more importantly, the work that I'm doing. And so I would encourage you at least bookmark their website. It's photoflex.com. Check it out. They've got some really good tutorials on there. I'm going to be doing some tutorials exclusively for them. And there's definitely, a lot of cool stuff coming. Also, for those of you that may be in the New England area in the United States, next weekend, so July 14th, 15th, and 16th, I will be in Amherst, Massachusetts, on the campus of the University of Massachusetts at the 72nd Annual New England Camera Club Council Photography Conference. Say that 5 times fast. I'm going to be doing 2 things this weekend. It's a great conference, by the way. So seriously, if you're in the New England area or anywhere accessible to it, let me get you guys the link here for you. You should check out their website. This is not a razzle-dazzle type thing. This is a hardcore learning opportunity type thing. So let me just make sure I've got you the right link before I paste that in there. NECCC, just to give you a little background, it is the New England Camera Club Council. So it turns out that the New England states in the United States have the highest density of camera clubs per capita in the country, which is kind of cool. So the New England Camera Club Council is like an overarching organization that helps organize them and gets them to work together and do cool stuff. Every year, they do a photography conference the second weekend in July. It's held at the University of Massachusetts main campus in Amherst. I've been a speaker there 4 or 5 times before over the years. I was there last year. You guys may remember. I did one of my last frame videos from there. I'll be there this year doing 2 things. On Friday, which is the 14th, I'll be doing a 3-hour workshop, social media for photographers. So this is a small group workshop where we're really going to work on the attendee social media. It's not me lecturing for 3 hours. God, no. It's actually hands-on, getting people social media marketing efforts and that really put together, spruced up, and giving them a game plan going forward. And then 3 times over the weekend, I will be doing a talk about portraiture. It's similar, and when I say similar, it's got the same title, but it's a really different talk, I promise you. The video that I posted a while ago from the talk that I did for a camera club called Simple Approach to Portraits That Flatter. Well, we're actually using the same title for this talk, but it's a very, very different talk, very different approach. So, you know, if you have an opportunity to be there, number one, I would love to meet you. But I will also tell you that if you go and check it out, you'll find that they've got a lot of really great speakers coming in. I believe the keynote speaker this year is Brian Peterson, who is a well-known photographer and YouTuber and vlogger. The best part is it's really, really reasonably priced. It's inexpensive to do. So I would encourage you guys, check it out, see what you think. So, we ready for some questions? I'm ready for some questions because we're running a little bit late here. So, I am actually going to kind of cherry pick one here because it relates to the video that I posted this weekend about the inverse square law, okay? And sure enough, it's my buddy Troy that picked this up on this one, and a couple people asked about this on YouTube also, so I wanted to clarify it. So, Troy's question is, I demonstrated in the video that the closer the flash is to the subject, the harder the light. And he referenced another YouTuber, Gavin Hoey, saying that the closer the light, the softer it is. So obviously that sounds completely wrong. So follow along, gang, and let me try and explain this to you because Gavin Hoey's not wrong and I'm not wrong. The confusion is in the context, okay? So, in my video, my inverse square law video, I talk about the fact that if you move the subject, if you move your light modifier closer to the subject and get too close, the shadows actually start to get harsh. Now, the common logic that many of you have been taught, and this is a piece, I'm not going to lie, I'm kicking myself that I left this out of the video. I should have mentioned this in the video. The common logic is we're taught very early on in our lighting knowledge path, bigger the modifier, softer the light, right? So if I've got like a softbox here and I go to a 5-foot octadome, we're generally taught that that should be softer light. And the answer is, it is softer light. The context in the video is taking any light source. And so it could be the 5-foot octabox. And if you go from here to here, the difference from here to here, the shadows will fall off faster and the light will be harsher. Yes, that 5-foot octabox is going to wrap more and will be softer by definition than the soft box. But by comparison, if we say halve the distance, because in the video I do, halve and double the distance. If we halve the distance, then we are going to make the light sharper by comparison. So Gavin Hoey's not wrong, Troy. It's a matter of understanding the context and what he's speaking about. I'm not familiar with which video you're talking about, and I'm confident. I have complete faith in Gavin Hoey that he's not teaching the wrong thing. It is a common piece of confusion that happens for people when they start to really dig into the inverse square law thing, because indeed, when the inverse square tells you that the closer it is, the harsher it is, but then you also learn that the bigger the modifier, the softer the light. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. That kind of seems to work against each other. No, it's 2 completely different statements or 2 completely different pieces of lighting science that are being referenced there. And that's why. I'm going to make it a point because I realized I should have clarified that point in my video. Even though that's not the inverse square law, I should have mentioned it because indeed it's something to confuse people. So I am going to make it a point to actually illustrate that in some upcoming videos and show people so that it becomes a little bit clearer. So yeah, it's a great question. It's just we're talking about two completely different aspects of lighting, and that's where the confusion comes in. So it's completely legitimate confusion. So, okay, let's see here. Carl's got a question for me about focus. And he says, when he first started in photography, he was taught how to use hyperfocus. I think you mean hyperfocal distance, but let's go on with the question. If you wanted to basically have a point and shoot camera, he was shooting his wife this weekend in Chicago at the Bean. If I'm not mistaken, somebody help me out. The Bean is that big mirrored thing that looks like a misshaped jelly bean or something. That's the Bean? Okay. So I'm sorry, I haven't been to Chicago for a while. I wanted to get her close to both him and have the Bean large in the background and in focus, and he failed. So he tried a couple things he knew to do, but he still could only get her or the Bean in focus. He's asking if I can give him a major pointer, or give him a pointer on shooting her like this. She was about, now follow close, she was about 10 feet from him and 30 feet from the Bean. So that puts the photographer 40 feet from the Bean, subject 10 feet away, okay? He shot at 250 a second, f11, at 200 millimeter. The one mistake he did do, and he changed later, was to shoot late at night before he set the ISO. Okay, so we know the ISO doesn't matter. So, Carl, the simple problem here is your focal length. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but if you're 40 feet from that Bean with a 200 millimeter, you're only seeing a little tiny piece of the Bean. You're not going to see the whole thing. So remember, guys, there are 4 things, not 3, 4 that control depth of field. The 3 most commonly known ones: aperture. What's next? I'm waiting. Focal distance, in other words, how far you are from your subject. And the third one, I'm waiting, focal length, how long is the lens. The fourth one, which is not commonly taught as part of this equation, but it is where in the scene have you chosen for your focal point? Imagine if you're photographing a ruler, 12 inches, and so it's lined up in front of you like this, you know, this is part of the ruler, this is part of the ruler. So if you're photographing that ruler, it's 12 inches long, where is the best place to focus to get as much of the ruler in as possible? 1/3 of the way into the scene is where you want to focus your shot. That's how you're going to get as much in focus as possible. So there's actually 4 controls that you have. But the way you're describing this to me, Carl, shooting with a 200 millimeter at 40 feet, that's why you absolutely could not get all of it in focus. You need to go with a shorter lens. So, okay. Esben, did Canon just throw in a towel and hand over their business to Sony with the release of the 16 Mark II? No, everybody's got to take a chill. I had somebody ask me about this the other day, you know, because they're really worried. They just bought a bunch of Nikon equipment and they're not sure they made the right choice and all that kind of stuff. Canon and Nikon aren't going anywhere, gang. They're going to catch up without going way off the rails with this. Understand that if you look backwards, Sony got into the mirrorless business and they didn't really have a DSLR business. Nobody used Sony DSLRs. Nobody. Like literally. Okay? So they had nothing to lose. And keep in mind, Sony is not a camera company, folks. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Sony cameras are awesome. Awesome. Got that? Awesome. The A9 is awesome in the hands of people who actually need to use the A9, not for the average shooter that's running out and spending $4,500. Different story, right? Sony's great stuff. But Sony did not have a business that relied on DSLR sales, period. Not to mention they make movies, they have all kinds of other electronic equipment. So Sony was able to be a lot more nimble and move into this mirrorless space and own it. And they've done that well. And if you really pay attention, guys, in the early days of this Sony stuff, the mirrorless stuff, they made some pretty big missteps, okay? Now, they were far enough ahead of the curve, they've been able to recover. You know, they launched all these great cameras, they didn't have squat for lenses. So, and even now, they don't have a great lens line. It's getting a lot better before all the Sony people start freaking on me. No, I'm not trashing Sony here. I'm saying, look, you know, Sony saw it coming and they were really smart. The problem with Canon and Nikon, the minute they released their first mirrorless camera, real mirrorless camera, They've just killed off their entire DSLR sales. And what's the problem there? That's how those companies survive. So my personal belief, because I don't know, nobody really knows unless they work for those companies, Canon and Nikon, when they release the mirrorless cameras, they're going to have to come out with a full line of them. So it's not going to be released, hey, here's our first mirrorless camera, woo! Because I think, my personal opinion, if either one of them do that, they look like morons. Because they're not going to be able to compete with Sony with one camera. They need to come out with a line. And think a little bit, gang. That line needs to be completely interchangeable with their existing lenses. Otherwise, why wouldn't everybody go to Sony? So these companies are faced with a much bigger hurdle. So if you imagine how long it takes a camera to go from development to creation, testing, all that kind of stuff, cameras like this, 16 Mark II, that's been in the works for a couple of years. So it's not like they just decided 3 days ago, hey, let's come out with this new camera. Here it is. No, it's been in the works for a while. It's been in the pipeline. So I am reasonably confident. I have no factual knowledge. This is just kind of being a little bit open-minded, but looking at history, okay, and trying to understand where these businesses are at. I'm confident Canon and Nikon are working on full lines of mirrorless cameras. Believe me, excuse my French, but I'm pissed at Nikon. I'm a Nikon user. I'm really unhappy that Nikon can't seem to get their heads out of the sand and get their act together. Okay, but do I think they're going to go out of business anytime soon? No. Do I think they're just going to walk away and become irrelevant? No, I don't. They'll get their act together. They'll be back. They'll be back strong. Canon and Nikon, they're both going to make some missteps. Sony's got a decided advantage. Absolutely. But, I just think everybody kind of needs to chill out about that a little bit. The thing that Sony's done that's brilliant, and again, no disrespect to Sony, gang, please. The thing that Sony's done is brilliant is they have created a mentality around their gear that it's exactly like Apple has with the iPhone. I'm one of those people, I stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning when the new one comes out so I can order it. Okay, I've never been crazy enough to go wait in line, but I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning so I can order my new iPhone. I'm an Apple fanboy. I want the new iPhone. When it comes out, boom. Okay, I admit, Sony's created that same kind of culture very effectively around their gear. And bravo to them. I mean, Canon and Nikon could have done it, should have done it, but they haven't. So, it's one of those things. So I would say basically patience. So here's a question from Anand. Is it important for studio photography to be knowledgeable in both studio and outdoor photography, or would you suggest getting really awesome at studio photography or outdoor photography alone? Well, Anand, in your case, no, I'm kidding. Anand, what I would say to you is I think you're thinking about it the wrong way, okay? It's not about studio and or outdoor. It's about photography. Part of the challenge that people have with outdoor photography is they make it about outdoor photography. That's part of why, as much as I was kind of tough on Byron and his photo because I'm so tired of seeing that lighting, that's part of what happens. That lighting that he did, and again, this is not to take anything away from his picture. His lighting was spot on, okay, except for the box needed to be higher, right? But the problem with that whole approach is it's simple. Everybody's doing it because it's simple. What they're not doing is they're not really learning to light outdoors. And here's the irony. You don't need to light outdoors. You need to know light. You need to learn how to light a portrait, period. And then that ambient light outside, wherever it is, whether it's behind the subject, whether it's in front of the subject, because what do I do in the studio? I put light behind my subjects all the time, just like those backlit portraits, right? So, my answer to you, Anand, not to kind of, be artsy about it or anything else, but sincerely, it's not about being great at studio or being great at outdoors. It's about being great at photography. I'm considered primarily a studio photographer because I just have to work 10 times harder, and I'm not a fan of having to deal with all the crap outdoors. So I prefer the studio. And plus, it's worth mentioning, shots like Byron's, and I'm not going to name any other names because they're also YouTubers and that, but some of these guys that are doing the same lighting stuff on YouTube, the worst part is if you look at their shots, you could create that shot in the studio in 3 seconds. You could walk around with your iPhone and shoot those blurry backgrounds, or use your regular camera, shoot a bunch of blurry backgrounds, and then just literally shoot your subject on a gray background, throw a green gel on it, and then mask them out in Photoshop, it'd look exactly the same. There's a photographer that's out there doing this same lighting kind of setup with like 2 and 3 and 400 millimeter lenses right now, which when you first look at it, it's kind of cool. Like when you first look at it, like super creamy bokeh, all that stuff. But then you quickly realize it's like the subjects looks like they're pasted on the image. Like they don't look like they're really standing there. They look like they're pasted on it because the depth of field is so shallow at that point. So like to me, then why not do that in the studio? Like you guys have heard me talk about it before. I don't have a problem using Photoshop to finish an image. I don't have a problem with cheating. My subjects only care about the finished image. So if I can stay in a studio where I have full control and I can create an image, why would I not stay in the studio with full control and make that image instead of going outside and fighting the elements where I've got to fight the wind, the heat, and all that stuff? And here in Pennsylvania, I'm not asking for anybody's sympathy. I'm just saying, Pennsylvania is not the greatest place in the world to shoot people outdoors. Like today is 90 degrees and like 30 or 40% humidity, so it wasn't too humid. A couple days from now, we'll have 70 or 80% humidity routinely. Okay, so you never really get good weather for shooting outdoors. Add to that wind, you can't control the hair, all that kind of stuff. Even the first shot that we looked at tonight by Justin, where I actually admitted I like the creamy bokeh. Go back and look at that picture on my Facebook group. Aside from the stray hairs, she looks like she's cut and pasted on top of it because that's the effect. That's the effect that everybody's into. So I'm not dissing Justin. I'm just saying, like, so photography is photography, and doesn't matter where you're doing it. Just learn good photography. And that's the thing. When you go outside, don't make lighting outside any harder than it needs to be. The sun is just another light source. That's all it is. If you guys watch my video about how to shoot portraits in bright sunlight, where actually I shoot them in the shade, I talk about the idea that the sun is just another light source. Don't overthink it. Okay, that's the key. So let's see, Robert Bishop here. I'm looking at upgrading all my gear in the next month or so. We'll go a couple minutes late, obviously. I'll do like another 10 minutes here, gang, and then I'm gonna head out. Guys, if you have questions, make sure you post them in the link that I gave you in the chat room there. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take them out of the chat, otherwise I won't get many questions done. So he is looking at upgrading all his gear in the next month or so. Cameras, lenses, lighting. That sounds scary, Robert. His budget is a little over £10,000. He wants to focus mainly on portrait and wedding shoots. He's really struggling with which band to go for, and I'll definitely be purchasing a high-end full frame with a 70-200 2.8, 24-70 2.8, and maybe an 85mm 1.4, 1.8 prime lens to start. He's not really bothered about staying local or loyal to Canon, as he only has an old Rebel T1 with an 18-55, a 55-250 kit lens. Having done literally tons of research, I'm torn between Nikon D810 and Canon 5D Mark, whatever, 4. And wait for it, the Sony A9. What's your opinion on what I should get? I know it's a big upgrade for my current gear, which won't necessarily improve my photography, but I'm financially in a position to commit to buying something a bit higher end. So, I will try to contain myself here, Robert. But let me put this simply. If you go out and buy all that equipment in one fell swoop and spend £10,000, you're an idiot, man. Sorry. You're coming from a Canon TI with kit lenses, okay? You clearly right now have more money than skills. So since you've got more money than skills, instead of blindly making a decision based on some dude on YouTube sitting in his office saying, do this? Really? £10,000 because Joe Edelman said so? Hell no, I'm not going to own that responsibility. Go out and rent the 3 cameras. If you're spending pounds, you're in the UK. You can rent cameras in the UK. Rent an A9. Rent a 5D Mark whatever. I don't know why you'd buy a Nikon D810. They're about to come out with the 820 or the 850, so why buy one that's a step old? Okay? So, but rent them. Try them. But man, obviously I can't see your work, so I'm not going to take any shots at your work here, but you sound like a person that's about to make a hugely expensive mistake. That's all I can tell you, period. If you've got that kind of money, my advice to you is identify the camera system that you want to get into. Buy the camera and one lens. Buy the 24-70. Go use it for a while. Once you've and keep your Canon T3i. Use that as your go-to camera if you have to shoot anything important, okay? And then after a while, go out to 70-200. But to go out and buy all that stuff, if your photography is up here, you're going to tank yourself right down to here. Guarantee it. It's not the way to do it, man. It's just not the way to do it. We all love gear. I love gear. Everybody loves their toys. This is why camera manufacturers will never sponsor me. The great thing about my deal with PhotoFlex is, as you saw me say in that video about PhotoFlex, I talk about a Walmart reflector while I'm talking about a PhotoFlex, and they sell reflectors. I'm not going to sell out to anybody. I'm going to tell you guys what I use and what I believe. What I believe is, Robert, you need to go and rent that gear and try it out. Don't buy it. Jose Alvarez asks, great follow-up question. What is your input about being a brand fanboy? Well, you've already heard it, Jose. Obviously, it's great if you love your brand. I mean, you should love your brand. You should be really happy with your camera and the equipment that you're buying. Otherwise, you're doing something wrong. But to do what a lot of people are doing with Sony right now, and, like, Sony's got a new camera, everybody run and buy it, that's stupid. It just is. There are a lot of people that are buying the Sony A9 that don't need it. So once again, to be clear, because I know I've done a lot of ups and downs with it, the Sony A9 is an awesome freaking camera. But it is much, much more camera than most people need. And, the one thing that I am very much not in favor of, and I will take exception to another YouTuber who is a wedding photographer who has a lot more subscribers than me. So what the hell do I know, right? But this guy just released a video talking about how great it is to be able to just hold that button down and pop off a ton of frames to make sure you get the shot. For those of us that believe in being a skilled photographer, we call that spray and pray. Spray and pray will never be the way to get the best shot. Spray and pray will sometimes get you the best shot. But spray and pray will never replace skill and practice and hard work. It just won't. It simply won't. Okay? And the reason why it's going to be successful, it's going to win. It's going to win, though. Now, I said it'll never replace it, but it's going to win. Because part of it is the way we're used to seeing images now. What do we see even on the news? We'll see 20 frames taken out of like the 3-second video clip where it's boom, boom, boom. And so it's almost like watching a stop action. As the technology is evolving, as the news evolves in the way we see things, they're pulling still frames out of video clips. We're seeing more of that. But instead of just showing one, they'll show a sequence of them. So, yeah, it's going to become the thing to do. But the worst part is most people don't need that. So that's my thing. Nothing wrong with being a fanboy, but not to the point of being stupid about it. So, you want to be a fanboy? Sure. Like, I own a Nikon baseball cap, and I own a Nikon raincoat, and yeah, I'm a fanboy, but there's a limit, okay? I'll give you a good example. Nikon's probably going to come out with the 820 or the 850 this year, whatever they decide to call it, that everybody expects it's going to be a 40-some megapixel camera. I'm sure it's going to be very nice. Based on all the things we're hearing about the camera, I probably will not buy it. Not because I think there's anything wrong with it. I don't need it. I have no need for that many megapixels at this point in my career with the kind of work that I'm doing. It's going to provide no value to me whatsoever. So am I going to be in line to get this camera because it's new and it's cool and everybody's talking about it? No, I'm not a gear sniffer at all. If there's something about that camera that's game-changing that I have not imagined yet, can't believe it, and when I see it, it's like, oh my God, that is going to completely change my world. Oh, hell yeah, I'll be there. But there's no indication that that's happening. So at this stage of the game, no, it's a new camera. I would say to anybody that hasn't bought an 810, that's a Nikon user that's looking to step up, sure, then jump over the 810, go to that once it's out. But no, there's going to be no reason for me to do that. There's a great article on the blogs today. I saw it on Petapixel. I saw it on DIYphotography.net about some photographer who did this article about why he got rid of his really expensive camera and bought a cheap camera to do his pictures. I think the article is a bit gratuitous, but there's actually a lot of value to his point. And it's the same old point. It's not about the camera. It's like when you go to a social gathering or you go to a family picnic, or somebody says to you, and they're trying to be nice, it's like, hey, you must take really great pictures because you have a really nice camera. It's like, no, it's not the camera, right? It's just not. So, all right, a couple more questions here. So, let's see. This is coming from James Parrish. What are some steps we can do when shooting to notice the details? This seems to be a problem with a lot of photographers, myself included. James, it is a problem for a ton of photographers. And it's not the kind of problem where, I can whine at it like a Sony fanboy and say, oh, yeah, they're horrible because they do it. No, it's a learning curve thing. It's a problem that you have to work through. You have to train yourself through. One of the first things that you do, literally, is you start out by looking at your images through a microscope. And I don't mean like blow them up really big. I mean for details. Obviously, you want to get to the point. Your goal is get to the point that when you have a subject in front of you, you're going to notice the hair that's out of place. You're going to notice the strap that's twisted. You're going to notice the shirt that's folded under. You're going to notice the necklace that's crooked. You're going to notice all those things. You're going to notice the hairband on the wrist. All that stuff. I can actually tell you all the science names behind why you miss that. Believe it or not, you all have an excuse for missing it. It's because you are human. It's something called inattentional blindness. And then a second element from time to time called change blindness. You can Google and look them up. There's some good videos on it. It will, hopefully make some sense. But the point is, when you're first starting out, it is hard to notice it in real time. So the way you train yourself is by looking at your images, literally with a fine-tooth comb. What's out of place? What should I change? What should I fix? And then try and fix it. Sometimes you won't be able to. That's okay, but try. It's literally kind of a form of self-punishment. You remove a hairband 4 or 5 times. You remove an earring 4 or 5 times in Photoshop and ultimately be dissatisfied with how it looks, realizing it would have been so much easier if I just had to take it out. The next time you see that earring or see that hairband or see that twisted strap, you'll have it fixed before you press the button. So it's literally just a way of teaching yourself. Now, if you're a photographer that takes pictures, has sloppy details, looks at the picture, says, oh my God, I love it. And then somebody looks at your pictures and points out all these sloppy details. Not gonna lie, but that's an indicator of a bigger problem. And that means you're gonna have to work a whole lot harder to solve that problem. But can it be solved? Sure, it can be solved. Just takes a lot of hard work, okay? Question here from Jean Calvino. For business portrait photo, what style of nails or nail polish or stick-on nails should I suggest on my client? Business law, dark-skinned woman. Clear coat or thin French tip, period. Doesn't matter what their skin color is, doesn't matter what ethnicity, doesn't matter. Clear coat or thin French tip, whether it's their real nails, whether it's the glue-on nails, you want it super, super simple, clean. That's all you need, okay? Steve Land's got a question here. With the Nikon D500 and a Tokina 100 2.8 lens, several shots here and there are not very sharp and not totally in focus. Try continuous and single focus. Always look great through the viewfinder. Usually shoot around f4.5 to 6.1. Have I seen that? Seems that the eye at 1:1 is blurry. Just doesn't look right sometimes. Steve, Esben, thank you so much, man. I will try and get to your question next. I will do yours next, and then I'm going to head out, okay? So, Steve, to get to your question, there's a lot of options that really you're not giving me information for. So I have not run into any problems. I'm not a D500 user, but I haven't seen anybody complaining about it. You guys all know I use that Tokina 100 millimeter and absolutely love the lens. It is amazing. I would ask you just to make sure, where are you placing the focus point? Like you're saying, well, okay, so the eyes look good here, but not good there. But where are you placing them? Those kinds of things. That's the stuff that you got to make sure. You want to make sure that focus point is right where it needs to be in the eyes. But yeah, it's possible you may need to go ahead and get yourself a focus checker and adjust the calibration on it. It's certainly possible. That can happen on any camera. It can happen on any lens. There is no such thing as a guaranteed scenario where it won't happen. And then that would be your first step if you continue to have problems. And then the next step would be get the camera checked out. Next step, get the lens checked out. That type of thing, okay? All right, so Esben's got a question here. He said about proofs. Here it is, Esben. Okay, so I'm working on a series of photos from a shoot this past weekend and preparing them for proofing. How much effort should I put into the photos at this point? Only adjust exposure and composition if needed, or should I also be looking at color correcting them at this point also? Esben, for me, and I'm not sure exactly what types of photos they are, if they're portraits or whatever, but for me, anything that can be done in Camera Raw or the Develop panel in Lightroom, they're the same thing, right? Okay. Anything that can be done in there should be done for proof. So that's going to be color balance, color correction. That's going to be, now that's not going to be your fine color corrections that you do in the hue, saturation, and luminance, but anything you can do in the Develop panel or Camera Raw. At a minimum, those are the things you can do. So you should crop the image, but you should have your exposure, your contrast, your shadows, your highlights, all that stuff done. You should also do your sharpening. If you do any kind of pre-sharpening, I think I've shown you guys many, many times before. My raw files come out of the camera pre-sharpened at 25. I always boost it to 50. That's like one of my standard settings as far as that goes. So that's definitely a flavor to taste thing. So if you choose to do that, that's great, but it's not a rule somewhere, okay? Sorry, all of a sudden I'm talking in my ear back there. So, yeah, beyond that, Esben, I mean, what you really have to decide on, you have to look at is how many proofs you're giving out. It's rarely worth doing like group photos from the beach. Yeah, anything that you can do in the Develop panel then and Camera Raw, that's what you do. I wouldn't go to the point of if it's a group shot, like swapping heads or retouching blemishes and flyaways and that kind of stuff. That should all be afterwards. But yeah, and part of the reason is if they're group photos, the exposure should be fairly consistent across the group. So, you know, when you're in the Develop panel in Lightroom or when you're in Camera Raw, you can select multiple images. And essentially, you're going to be using the same settings across the board. The only thing that may vary is going to be some of your exposure settings, but your vibrance settings, color saturation, all that kind of stuff, your color balance, that stuff should be consistent all the way across. So it's not like you're actually having to touch every image to do it. So that would be my recommendation. So, all right, gang, it's time. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight. I really, really appreciate it. It's definitely time for me to wrap up here. My 1 hour show is now at an hour and 23 or 24 minutes. So new video coming this week, gang. It's all about doing beauty dish lighting with a $20 shoot through umbrella. And I'm going to show you how to do it. You guys ought to be able to figure it out now that you've seen my inverse square law video, but I'm going to demo it for you. I'm going to show you how to do that. Bunch of other new stuff coming to the website this week. Make sure you're checking out my website, gang, for a couple reasons. Number one, now that everything's set up and it's working the way it's supposed to, anytime I put out a video like that inverse square law video, an article about that entire subject went up today. So if you're a person that likes to be able to kind of read along with things and look at the images from there, go check out my website. It's on the blog there. You can get all the details, okay? But beyond that, gang, get out there and take pictures. That's the key. You guys were asking about details. We talked a lot in the photo review tonight. It's all about the details. And simply put, gang, that requires practice. So shoot something, right? I hope to see all of you here again next Monday night for a live episode of TogChat. In the meantime, gang, please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.